This week, the Torah portion is Parashat Tetzaveh, and the title is Who Will Speak for Those Who Cannot Speak for Themselves? What I did this week, is I took Rabbi's message, and I'm going to read it. I'm taking the message on today's Parashat Tetzaveh, you shall command, from the teaching that our Rabbi of blessed memory brought to us in 5780. And the reason I'm reading it was because there were some glitches in the video, but it was a very good message. As I mentioned last Shabbat, he told us that these portions are not chronological. So why should that matter? Well, it's more important to examine the Torah in light of its application to our lives rather than getting caught up in the details. That's not to say that the making of the elaborate vestments of the Kohanim and the other magnificent items for the Mishkan, the tent of meeting, should be ignored. Rather, that there is danger in becoming too esoterical or mystical and forgetting the practical application to our lives. One of the consequences is that we are losing our young people, and not only them, but the rest of the world, who's also being deprived of the essence of what the Creator wants to impart to humanity. Exodus 28:3 says, "And you shall speak to all who are wise-hearted, whom I have filled with the spirit of wisdom, that they make Aaron's garments to sanctify him, that he may minister to me in the office of Kohanim." In the same way that these people were chosen for their innate talent, each of us has been gifted by God. But how many of us know what our gifts are? Sadly, most people are looking for what they can get instead of what they can give. These are gifts. They're to give. The result is that so many people end up working in areas where they feel unfulfilled, and they sense that something is missing in their lives. Our rabbi said that he had a friend many years ago who loved and excelled in martial arts. He won countless medals in his field. And if you didn't know him, he appeared to be very mild-mannered, even timid. If he was insulted, he never reacted. The only time he stood up to defend anyone was when that person couldn't defend himself. Although he was very capable of winning, he never started a fight. He knew what he had inside, and he knew he didn't need to show off. When we search within and begin to truly know our gifts and our qualities, we stop having to prove anything to anyone. Of course, that's a process. These gifts were implanted within us so that we can use them to find our place within society and serve the greater good. The Kohanim had to make a very special oil for the menorah to bring light into the Mishkan. It would have to burn continuously and be so pure that it would not produce any smoke within the tent. The reasons are very practical. They wouldn't want the Kohen Hagadol, the high priest, to choke to death during his time of service. And since the tent had no windows, the menorah would bring in light. God is always looking at these physical things which he uses to send us an esoteric message. Shedding light on something means to bring clarity to it. Our Creator wants us to be transparent. There are people who think that they are doing that, but they often come with a hidden agenda. For example, when we do a favor for someone, do we expect to get something in return? This is a struggle for us. Are we ever really perfectly clear about why we do things for others? The principle here is to learn to be honest and direct in our dealings with people. Most of us are so used to putting on a facade for others, more concerned about our appearance than who we really are. We're all guilty of that. We all have our methods of performing, even of manipulating people in situations in order to look good, as if we are in a good light. This portion is reminding us to be ourselves, to be as clear in our communication and to be as direct as possible without being hurtful or insulting. We can learn to be kind while being honest. Sadly, hypocrisy has become the rule of the day. The garments which were designed for the Kohanim, which were regal, elaborate vestments, were made of precious stones. Were they made for the benefit of the Kohanim or for the Creator? No, they were meant to draw the attention of the Israelites away from the magnificent costumes of the priests of Egypt. They were the ones who practiced paganism without mercy. Our God, who is merciful, wanted to redirect their focus, the focus of the Israelites, toward Him. He could have done this in 1 second by changing their brains. But He gave humanity free will. He doesn't want robots. He wants us to exercise our free will. It would be a weaning process for the Israelites in which they would have to choose on a daily basis between light and darkness, between good and evil. This is the process for each of us who have been affected by the darkness of our past and the darkness of the world, and who are being brought into His light. When we think of the light in the Mishkan, the menorah lit with pure oil, we are reminded of our responsibility of being or l'goyim, light to all the nations in this world. The Kohen HaGadol would be the representative for the people. He was the middleman. Kohen means the link between them and their Creator, signifying how we are to present ourselves before Him. He had to first present burnt offerings for himself first before he could represent the people. The Kohen would need to be humble enough to acknowledge that he could sin, even if he was dressed in such an elaborate costume. God's not impressed with our outward display, our costume of religiosity. He knows our hearts and wants us to come clean to Him. And then He would, so to speak, cover us in a special garment. I thought of the garment of praise when I was reading this. Our Creator is teaching us to keep our light shining and to be light to others. But we bring only smoke when we are dishonest with one another. The Torah emphasizes that clarity is extremely important, that we are to be transparent so that people can see us for who we are. Sometimes we'll be in a good mood, sometimes not. Sometimes we'll do or say something wrong, but we need to acknowledge what we've done or said and make it right. This is where the support of true friends come in. They're the ones who can tell us the truth about ourselves. They can tell us with kindness because they want to help us grow, not put us down. The people who have more problems growing and changing are those who will not acknowledge that they can do anything wrong. It's easier to blame others than to take responsibility. We live in a society where victim mentality is prevalent, and we see that in all its various movements. It's so easy to point fingers at others for our problems, but remember, when we point a finger at others, 3 are pointing back at us. Our first responsibility is to check within ourselves before we judge anyone else, to examine our own behavior and not blame others for what we do. That's what our Rabbi Yashuv told us. One of our own rabbi, one of his favorite expressions was tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. Justice, justice, we must pursue. He would always speak up against injustice wherever he saw it, and that didn't make him popular. Today, as believers in the Creator and followers of the Torah and its standards, we must speak up against the injustices of this world. We may be singled out and attacked to the point that we become afraid to speak. But then who will speak up for the mute and the blind and those who cannot speak for themselves? In the book of Proverbs 31:9, it's written, "Open your mouth, judge righteously, plead the cause of the poor and the needy." Who will speak for the unborn baby who has no voice? Even the religious world has diluted the message. The medical or scientific world calls the baby a fetus so that their conscience can be appeased by disassociating it from a human being. The scriptures point out clearly that life begins at the moment of conception. Women may say, "It's my body, and no one can tell me what to do." And men may say, "It's their body. We don't have the right to tell them what to do with their body." We are the ones who must speak up for that baby. For too long, we have been too quiet. The Creator is calling us to be light to the world. It is time to cry out that the principles of the Creator teach justice, mercy, and caring for the weak, the widow, the orphan, and the foreigner. God has given us the tools to move forward and to not allow others to speak for us, to deal with injustice instead of thinking that we are victims and are powerless. As followers of the Torah, we are responsible. That is the result of having free will. The garments of the high priest depict that our attention needs to be focused on him and on doing his commandments, on doing what is right. It's not easy to be a believer, to reflect God's light. It would be easier to simply accept the opinions of others in order to keep the peace. But as our prophet Isaiah said in chapter 42, verses 6 and 7, and in 49, chapter 6, he said, "I, the Lord, have called you in righteousness and have taken hold of your hand and kept you and set you for a covenant of the nations to be a light to the peoples, to open blind eyes, to bring out the prisoners from the dungeons and those who sit in darkness out of the prison house. Indeed," it says, "it is too light a thing that you should be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to restore the offspring of Israel. I will make you a light to the nations so that my salvation may be to the end of the earth." Shabbat Shalom.